Hello everyone. This story is about, what if God-like Naruto was able to feel other people's emotions and fall in love with Mei and Anko? Please like, share and subscribe for more. Also check the other fics I've uploaded. Now let's start. Two figures stood outside a pub within Tanzakugai, a lively town known for its gambling opportunities and fine women. Behind them, the sounds of the ongoing festival filled their ears. It was dark, the sun having set an hour ago, and the gentle breeze was cool. I figured she'd be in a place like this. Jiraiya the Sannin spoke in a knowing tone, his features as a man who accepted the inevitable. Let's go, Uzumaki Naruto began, taking a step into the pub. Listen, kid, Jiraiya started, Tsunade. She's not herself. His tone was hesitant. Naruto raised an eyebrow at his sensei. She's lost everyone she's ever loved to the shinobi lifestyle, he explained. I haven't spoken to her in a while, but I think she may be a bit cynical. Naruto gave a small smile. I will let you take the lead, sensei. He said. I will stay silent until I am needed. Jiraiya gave his student a look of gratefulness, sending him the emotion the best he could. He loved how Naruto didn't need words. Words were too complicated. One slip up, one misunderstanding, and relationships could be torn apart forever. Taking a second to center himself, Jiraiya pushed through the doors of the bar/restaurant. The moment he stepped in, he was greeted by warm walls and a multitude of tables, sectioned off by red dividers. The air smelt heavy of grease and sake, which, considering where they were, wasn't a surprise. It literally took 5 seconds for him to spot the woman he was looking for, as she was sitting at a table facing the entrance. Tsunade, he shouted in a cheery tone, completely masking his emotions. A woman with blonde hair and bronze eyes suddenly stood, her cheeks hinting at a small, buzzed blush. Jiraiya, she called out. Taking their time, student and teacher walked to the woman. Her table was littered with sake bottles, and the young woman sitting next to her, with a pig in her arms, oddly enough, looked a little nervous. The two sat down without preamble, ordering a drink. A few minutes of silence passed before the drinks were served. Tsunade and Jiraiya gulped down sake, while Naruto just smiled back at the nervous woman accompanying the slug Sannin. After taking a rather large gulp of liquor, Tsunade sighed deeply. In any case, she began in a slightly tired voice. Today is a day I see many old friends. Jiraiya leaned over the table, pouring what was left in the sake jar into his longtime friend's cup, before downing what was left in his own. He was quiet for a second before he spoke. You mean Orochimaru? The woman next to the blonde-haired kunoichi visibly flinched, her eyes widening slightly. What happened? Jiraiya asked in a commanding voice. Unknown to the others, Naruto had gone deathly still, his mind racing with thoughts of murder and rage. Even the mention of the bastard who killed his Gigi made him incredibly furious. It didn't matter if he was alive again. The fact that he was even injured by the traitorous snake angered him. He kept his emotions in check, staying silent like he promised his sensei. He respected Jiraiya more than most, despite their friendly banter. He had taught him many important things, jutsu and life lessons alike. Tsunade gave the black-haired woman a pointed look, one that told her to keep her mouth shut. Nothing, really. The slug princess began. We exchanged a greeting. A lie, Naruto could tell. The last Senju pulled out a deck of cards from her blouse, flipping through the cards like it was second nature. She then placed the deck on the table. What about you? She asked. What do you want from me? Jiraiya picked up the cards. I'll be straight with you. He began as he started to shuffle the deck. He finished shuffling, before placing the deck back on the table, pushing it slightly in Tsunade's direction. Tsunade, it is the will of the village that you become the Godame Hokage. The legendary sucker had been reaching for the deck while he spoke, and when he finished, she froze, her hand hovering over the cards. Naruto was still silent, keeping his promise to stay quiet until he was needed. The woman to Tsunade's right, however, expressed her shock through her body language, and the little pig that had been munching on food paused, winking in a questioning way. As if it knew what was being said. Jiraiya crossed his arms, waiting for a response, while Naruto just took in the storm of emotions that the woman was feeling. And then, like nothing had even been said, Tsunade started dealing the cards, staying silent. When both Sannin held 5 cards, Jiraiya looked the woman in the eyes. Did you know about the Sandaime Hokage? Tsunade picked up her 5 cards, giving them a short look. Orochimaru did it, right? She asked in a calm tone. I heard about it. Naruto narrowed his eyes. Directly from him, she stated. Naruto almost wanted to chuckle. The woman was holding some information back. I'll say it again, Tsunade. Jiraiya continued, ignoring her apparent conversing with the enemy. Konoha needs you to take the mantle of Hokage. His face was the picture of seriousness. Will you accept? The medic Nin felt emotion so powerful, Naruto could almost read her mind. I'll bring your beloved little brother and man back to life. The words had a distinctly grotesque feel to them, obviously the words of a serpent. Images of a man with hair such a light blue that it practically glowed alongside a boy with a huge smile on his face flashed through her mind, Naruto feeling them they were that strong. The kunoichi just stared at her cards before throwing them onto the table, face down, and giving her fellow Sannin a somewhat dirty look. Impossible. She stated in a cold voice. I refuse. Everyone was quiet, including Naruto, as Tsunade just stared at Jiraiya, her gaze determined. The Toad Sannin, as it was, just smiled. I remember. Those words. He said. You said those same words when I asked you to go out with me. Naruto sighed at his sensei's nonsense, somewhat annoyed how this conversation was going. He had been compared to the woman on many occasions. Apparently, his chakra control was rivaled by only Senju Tsunadeheim. Tales of her valiant efforts in the wars and her incomparable battle medic prowess were always his favorite to hear about from his godfather. But, the woman before him seemed like a drunken, for lack of a better word, bitch. Catching the sigh, the blonde-haired woman turned to him, raising a delicate eyebrow. Who's the gaki? She asked. Naruto had enough. Jiraiya opened his mouth to speak, but Naruto beat him to it. I'm the Kamikage, he stated in a stoic manner, maybe you've heard of me. He added, tired of the woman's sarcasm. Not used to being in the presence of so many powerful and famous people, Shizune, the woman accompanying Tsunade, froze. Not only had she finally met all three of the Sannin, but now she was in the presence of the bringer of hope. Tsunade, being her usual stubborn self, showed no recognition to his name. Unlike your previous apprentice, this kid is quite arrogant. She said with a smirk. Naruto just chuckled softly. She thought she could hide from him. Inside, the Slugheim was just as shocked as Shizune. It's tough on anyone to be compared to the Yondaime Hokage. Jiraiya started with a smirk of his own, only Naruto, and himself knowing why. He had all the qualities to be the greatest ninja in all history. Naruto smiled. Brimming with talent in jutsu, and he had a brilliant mind. He then gave off a smug look. Popular with people and well. He was as handsome as me. But even that Yondaime Hokage died quickly. Tsunade stated suddenly. Naruto gave her a glare that could kill, not that she noticed from behind her cards. Risking his own life for the village, she stared at her cards and continued. Life is different from money. Shizune looked like she disagreed with what her Shursho was about to say. To easily risk it and lose it is a fool's doing. Below the table, Naruto clenched his fists. Tsunade continued. Both my grandfather and the Nidaime Hokage seemed to want to subdue the disturbances of war above all else. She was giving a small smirk that held nothing but contempt. But after all, they died in vain, in the midst of their dreams for the village. Jiraiya cast a glance at Naruto, knowing that Tsunade was on thin ice with the way she spoke. He then looked to Tsunade, a disappointed expression marring his face. You have changed, Tsunade. Jiraiya started. I don't know what you thought in your heart before, but to say such a thing out loud. Tsunade just smiled a humorous smile, placing her chin on her hand. Although I look young, I'm already in my 50s. Her eyes were closed as she spoke. Years change people. She opened her bronze orbs to stare into Jiraiya's black ones. Same goes for Sarutobi-sensei. Naruto felt the words she was about to utter before they even left her tongue. No wonder he died showing off at that old age. Jiraiya scowled, while Naruto tried with all his willpower to hold back. The woman was speaking against God, after all. Tsunade felt her fellow blonde's anger towards her. She stared at him blankly before returning to her cards. Apparently, her cards weren't to her liking, because she sighed deeply before she leaned her head back against the wall. Hokage is a bother. She spoke those ugly words into existence. No one but a fool would take it on. As soon as she spoke such blasphemy, all hell broke loose in the pub. Naruto snapped. Chakra, the likes of which she had only felt when Jiraiya truly craved mayhem and entered the honorable sage mode, fell upon them, frightening everyone present. The table they were sitting at was smashed to pieces, sake bottles and scraps of food thrown everywhere. Tsunade was pushed up against the wall, now standing, with Jiraiya's back facing her. He was in a defensive position, and that's when she noticed it. The boy's eyes were ablaze, with molten gold, his pupils slit. Jiraiya. He was protecting her from him. Move aside, sensei. Naruto shouted. He was so furious. All he saw was red. Don't. Jiraiya pleaded. We're in a pub. There are a lot of civilians in here. He could see the reasoning behind his godson's anger, but he couldn't condone it. He knew he couldn't beat the blonde in a fight, but he also knew that Naruto would never truly harm him. They were comrades, and most importantly, they were family. I said move aside. He stated again, his voice even more serious than before. Tsunade was wide-eyed before she saw that he couldn't or wouldn't brush past her old teammate. Seeing that he was stopped by Jiraiya, she huffed. Naruto met her gaze, a look of pure rage held within them. Anyone who makes fun of my Gigi and father. Immediately, Tsunade made the connection between the yondaime and the boy, his words confirming her theory. Uzumaki Naruto was the son of the yondaime. It doesn't matter who you hide behind. The magnitude of his chakra increased slightly, seriously making Tsunade see him as a threat. I'll end you. Everyone was silent. Jiraiya watched his godson, making sure he didn't make a move. He knew Naruto was upset, but Tsunade was the only person who could heal Hiruzen. They couldn't afford it if she died. Shizen stared worryingly at her Shursho, seriously scared for her. The Kamikage was a powerful shinobi, and they hadn't even heard of his actions in the invasion. Tsunade stared at the young shinobi, giving him a stoic look. She then smirked. You're pretty gusty. Confronting me like this. She paused. Let's take this outside, Gaki. She finished. Tsunade-sama. Shizen shouted. Naruto just smiled. She had given him what he wanted. Jiraiya sighed deeply, hoping his godson would hold back. He didn't want Tsunade to die. Tsunade was very, very nervous. She was a very powerful kunoichi, most likely the greatest of all time, but even she knew her limits. With how long she'd been out of service, coupled with her intense drinking problem, she knew she wasn't at the top of her game. That's why, when Orochimaru, a man she hadn't seen in years, approached her, with two people even she knew to be dangerous at his side, she knew she was putting Shizen, the last person she could truly call family, in danger. There was no land that Uchiha Itachi's name hadn't spread. His very name was the epitome of fear and treachery. He was a man of unrivaled skill, one of the few who could be compared to the Kamikage of Konoha. He was a man every Kage was wary of, a man who could kill an entire clan before anyone even knew about it. He was someone even the Sannin had to be cautious around. Orochimaru knew that firsthand. So when Tsunade saw those crimson eyes in the company of the serpent, she knew something absolutely awful was heading her way. And then there was the shark, the man who had so much chakra, he was called the Tilus-tailed beast. Hoshigaki Kisame was a name written in every bingo book since the day he betrayed Kiri, 7 years ago. Many S-ranked shinobi from many different villages had tried to capture this man, this monster, for years, and every attempt had ended in gruesome failure. He was a man whose body count reached the thousands, and you'd be an outright fool not to be cautious in his presence. His appearance with the Uchiha and renegade Sannin, Tsunade could only hope they didn't see through her tough act. She was by no means weak, still very well within her S-rank limits, but there had been a time when even all three of these men wouldn't cause her such anxiety. Sannin were borderline SS rank, and they didn't fear much. But with Shizen to her side, she was absolutely terrified. Orochimaru, she began, long time no see. Her tone was even, not betraying her disdain in seeing him again. Tsunade the snake replied. What do you want, Orochimaru? The slug Sannin continued, somewhat annoyed. Surely you didn't come to talk about old times. She slowly began to position her footing, not knowing if or when they were going to be attacked. She could see Shizen's tense form, obviously nervous about being so close to such deadly missing nin. Orochimaru actually snorted. Nothing like that, I assure you. Tsunade raised a brow. Oh, she took in his sickly pale skin and bandaged arms. What happened to you, Orochi? She asked in an unworried tone. She couldn't care less what happened to the twisted man she used to call comrade. Just a little something I acquired when I killed the Sandaime Hokage. He practically sang. Both Tsunade and Shizune tensed, eyes widening. Tsunade was shocked, before she gave an enraged look. Don't give me that look, Tsunachan. Orochimaru playfully said, angering the woman further. So scary. He finished. Enough. Itachi finally spoke, gaining everyone's attention with a single word. This petty back and forth is not the reason we have searched for you. Tsunade looked the younger ninja in the eyes, trying her hardest not to show fear. And why exactly have you sought me out? She asked the Konoha missing nin. She had never personally met the man, having left the village before he was even born, but she, like everyone else, had heard of him. We'd like you to join our organization. The large man named Kisame said, a toothy grin marring his face. Tsunade narrowed her eyes. The Akatsuki. Itachi started. Our organization is powerful enough to fall nations, and we'd like you to join us. You bring these children to me, asking me to join your new club, Orochi? Tsunade asked. She wore a smile that expressed no happiness. Why would I ever consider joining your organization, and why would you? She asked Orochimaru specifically, not really wanting to converse with the other two. They said they'd heal my arms, he began, and help me kill the person responsible for a recent failure. After he thought about it, he was actually glad to join the Akatsuki again. He had only fled from them because of his actions against Itachi, but that didn't seem all that important anymore. The organization was by far the most powerful group of shinobi on the planet, and with their materials and support, he could accomplish so much. Orochimaru was officially a loyal member of the Akatsuki. I'm tired of this, Orochimaru. Tsunade said. I don't wish to join any organization. She continued. Now disappear, before I make you disappear. Orochimaru just laughed. Such a temper, he chuckled some more. You haven't changed one bit. Tsunade gave him a cheery smile. No, I have not. She agreed. And you know my personality. She then narrowed her eyes somewhat. So leave. Her fist met the stone behind her, the entire wall, which ran for quite a long distance, crumbled like glass. Or I'll kill you. You haven't heard what you'd get in return for joining. Orochimaru replied, a disgusting smirk on his pale face. I'll give you to the count of 5. She continued, her expression a serious one. 1, she began. Oh, she's counting. Kisame whispered loud enough for everyone to hear, mock fear lacing his tone. 2. She continued counting when they appeared to not move, disregarding her warning. It's not an unpleasant offer, Tsunade. Orochimaru started. You should hear us out. 3. Was her only reply. Such a suborn woman, eh? Kisame quipped. 4. She continued, even though she really just wanted to kill the shark-faced man that instant. Itachi watched the whole thing with cool stoicism. 5. I'll bring your beloved little brother and man back to life. Orochimaru interrupted her counting, stopping her mid-word. Both Tsunade and Shizune froze, their eyes wide, their hearts all but stopping. Nawaki. Dan. Alive? Orochimaru gave a sinister smile. The Akatsuki has that kind of power, Tsunade. He started. We have that kind of power. He finished, gesturing to himself and his fellow Akatsuki members. The two women were silent, the snake's words in their heads, repeating over and over. Can we take your silence as a yes? Kisame asked with his ever-present smirk. Tsunade-sama. Shizune finally spoke up. You can't trust these traitors. She continued, gaining the courage to even speak in front of such powerful shinobi. They are missing nin. The worst kind, no less. They can't beat Dash. Shut up, Shizune. Tsunade shouted, causing the black-haired woman to pause, her expression that of someone struck. You don't have to decide now. Orochimaru spoke. But we will expect a pleasing reply soon, Tsunade. He finished by licking his lips with his nasty tongue. Just as fast as the men had appeared, they vanished, leaving the two alone with their thoughts. There was only one thing on the Slugheim's mind. Dan. Tsunade stood in front of Naruto, a smirk that spoke of her coming victory marring her face. Both Jiraiya and Shizune, who was holding Taunton, stood to the side, their faces that of worry. Shizen hoped Tsunade wouldn't seriously wound the hero of Kiri. Jiraiya, on the other hand, hoped Naruto wouldn't kill his old teammate. "Alright kid," Tsunade began, "let's see if all those rumors about you are true." She taunted. Naruto showed no emotion, his face as stoic as ever, his anger schooled, not controlling him, but the other way around. Uzumaki Naruto was the master of all emotions, and he wouldn't let one rule him. Tsunade knew the boy was powerful, ridiculously so. She had heard rumors of his prowess. She had been through Kiri after the Civil War, and tales of the bringer of hope were sung all throughout the village, damn near the entire country. He was their liberator, their all-powerful hero, the child monster who slew a Kage to free an entire nation. She couldn't hold anything back, she knew that. That's why, before they even indicated that the fight had started, Tsunade rushed him with impressive speed, her hand poised to smash him into unconsciousness. Shinobi rule number 2, a good strike is a preemptive strike. And then, Tsunade was shown just how out of her league she truly was. Both Tsunade and Shizen went wide-eyed, shocked beyond belief at what they were seeing. Within Naruto's inescapable grip, Tsunade's fist was stopped cold. "They aren't rumors," Naruto whispered so that only Tsunade could just barely hear his words. Letting her fist go, he bent his knees, slamming an opened palm strike into the woman's stomach, sending her crashing through the dirt street, landing in a, thankfully, unoccupied building, effectively destroying the innocent property. Standing from the debris, a slightly bruised Tsunade glared at the blonde, her hand ablaze with green flame. Medical ninjutsu. Kato Dan and Senju Nawaki. Naruto stated the names like he was somehow familiar with them. Tsunade was shocked for all but 3 seconds before her eyes narrowed a dangerous glint within them. "Don't you ever dash." Orochimaru offered to bring them back, didn't he? He already knew the answer, so Tsunade's surprised expression was unneeded. "And here I respected you as an equal." He looked at her disappointingly. "Now I see you're nothing but a typically foolish girl." He didn't actually feel superior to women, he knew they could be just as powerful as men, but he needed to get a reaction from her. Tsunade was what every kunoichi wished to be, a goal to reach, a motivation for every aspiring kunoichi. What he was seeing, from what he knew to be a powerful ninja, was something that looked disgusting on her. Weakness. Tsunade was proof that men and women were equals, that discrimination between genders was foolish. She was a woman who could take on an army. She was a woman who could face Kages. She was a woman who could fight alongside men, them knowing they could count on her to watch their backs. She was the epitome of feminine strength, and that is why Naruto had respected her more than he cared to admit. But this person in front of him, this weak drunk, was not a woman, she was a girl, a petty, selfish girl. Tsunade, for reasons she couldn't fathom at the moment, flinched under his disappointed glare, somehow disappointed in herself at how she was acting. "You disgust me," Naruto began, keeping his sexist facade going. "I was a fool to believe a woman could be my equal." He really didn't feel superior to women. Dan and Nawaki would be ashamed. He was superior to both men and women. That seemed to flare the emotion he was looking for. Rage. He could work with rage. Self-hatred was too difficult, but rage. Rage was easy. With a battle cry, Tsunade rushed the Kamikage, her entire body encased in chakra. At that moment, Naruto woke the sleeping giant. He stoked the flames. "There's your will of fire," he shouted before rushing at the Sannin, a giant smile on his face, his body burning with massive amounts of natural energy. The two exchanged mighty blows. Every hit roared like thunder, every kick crackled like lightning. The village shook from the resulting shockwaves, scaring the hell out of the villagers. Bones broke, only to heal seconds later. This was truly an S-ranked battle, and Naruto loved it. He felt awake, he felt excited. Tsunade had awoken the monster. And by the subtle curve of her lips, she was enjoying herself as well. They were having fun. By this time, Jiraiya and Shizen had to back up several steps, the shockwaves created by the two literally pushing them back. They even had to shield their faces with their arms from the gusts of pressure that was sent their way. It was almost scary, watching the two duel with taijutsu. With a single punch, either of them could destroy mountains. This lasted for several minutes, before the two stopped simultaneously, a silent agreement to pause. They both somehow knew what the other felt, exchanging blows as they did. They both knew that Tsunade couldn't continue without using certain techniques, and she doubted Naruto wouldn't do just the same. She had felt how strongly he was holding back, and as much as it annoyed her, it made her respect him more. He handicapped himself so that they could fight like they just did, and she hadn't had that much fun in a long while. Tsunade huffed slightly, her smirk still present. You're good, I'll give you that. You're not so bad yourself. Naruto replied. You're still foolish for trying to fight me alone. Tsunade continued. You have no idea what I'm capable of, Gaki. It seemed like some of her confidence had returned, just as he had planned. Naruto just chuckled. I'm not alone. He stated, causing Tsunade to raise a brow. She looked towards Jiraiya, an expression of dismissal on her face. Jiraiya? She asked, incredulous. He'd never hurt me unless I sought the destruction of the village. She said confidently. It was no secret how the Toad Sannin felt about her. She just couldn't reciprocate those feelings. She had tried, with Jiraiya, but she just couldn't. The moment he touched her, she felt like she was betraying Dan. At that moment, Naruto smirked. Tsunade froze, a chill running up her spine as two figures walked directly past her from behind, coming close enough to breathe on her. They walked up to Naruto, turning to face her. I am capable of much, much more as well, Tsunade-san. He replied. Sasuke and Gaara gave no expression, their faces schooled into cool stoicism. This was a part of their training. A shinobi needed to be able to mask all emotion at any given time. Shinobi rule number 4, deception is just as lethal as a kunai, if used correctly. And with Sasuke's eyes still covered in bandages, it was extremely easy to hide his humored feelings. They had just slipped past a Sanin's defenses like child's play. Naruto then looked the woman in the eyes, a serious expression marring his face. One of those capabilities, he began, his voice holding such authority, is complete resurrection. His words froze Tsunade. What's the point in this? Sasuke asked. He was slightly agitated at their current activity, not seeing the importance. I would also like to know, Shursho. Gaara added. He was just as confused as his fellow student. He couldn't see the reasoning behind their newest training. Naruto smiled. It's important. Naruto replied. Don't you two trust me? He asked. Gaara answered immediately. Of course. HN. Sasuke answered in his unique way. Then stay silent, and most importantly. As the three sat in a meditative position, their eyes closed, yet somehow still open, Naruto gave a monster smirk. Stay perfectly still. It had been 4 days since Naruto had faced off against Tsunade. He gave her a choice. She could join the Akatsuki, how he knew this. She hadn't a clue and inevitably die by his hand because he was going to erase the organization's name from the elemental nations, with her lover and brother by her side. That had caused some tension between the two, which Naruto easily brushed off. Or she could become the Godame Hokage. She was told that she was needed for an important task, and if she accepted both the title of Hokage and the mystery task, she could, if she still chose, have both Dan and Nawaki resurrected. Naruto had no idea if Nawaki's or Dan's bodies still existed, most shinobi were cremated, but that didn't matter. He didn't like it, but he knew how to work the Edo Tensei, and he could access their bodies with that, if need be. Bringing them to life would be difficult, but not impossible. With a little more experience and medical ninjutsu training, which he tended to ask Tsunade about later, he could master the art of bringing the dead back to life. Where there was a will, there was a way. He gave her a week to decide her path in life. Was she going to join the enemy and fall at Konoha's hands, or would she stay loyal and true, and become the Godame Hokage that the village needed so desperately? The Sandaime was still no doubt holding on to life by a thread, and Tsunade was really their only hope. Technically, Naruto could flood life energy and healing chakra into the professor's body, but that was risky, for the both of them. Naruto wasn't used to using raw life energy to heal wounds. One mistake, one slip up, and he could die. It also could affect his Gigi. Too much life energy, ironically, could kill someone. It was almost laughable. Life could cause death, ridiculous. Naruto left Tsunade to make her decision by herself. He now knew exactly how her chakra felt like, she couldn't run from him. He kept his distance, training Sasuke and Gaara while Jiraiya peeped on women and relished in the shinobi vices. He didn't mind though, that's how his godfather was, and he accepted it. Jiraiya had fought with his life to serve the people of Hai no Kuni. Harmless peeping and casual sex was his coping mechanism. If he ever forced himself onto a woman or anything the like, Naruto would step up and put his sensei in his place, but Jiraiya was not that kind of person. He was a peace-seeking man. He'd rather die before he took that freedom of choice from another individual. And most women knew who the man was, and his reputation. They'd hit him over the head for the principle of it, but never felt actual hatred for the man. They didn't approve of his little perverted hobby, but they didn't seek total retribution either. It was more like an annoyance more than anything. Everyone had a way of coping with the shinobi lifestyle. If you didn't have something, you'd go crazy. Naruto coped by doing his job to the best of his ability. He was never more awake than when he was slaying demons. Well, Anko and Mei made him feel awake, very awake, but he couldn't have that all the time. It was more than a coping mechanism, it was his love. Sasuke finally found his in Sakura. That girl would be safe as long as he took breath. His Aniki read those smut novels his godfather wrote, and he visited the Fallen Heroes Monument on a daily basis. "Are you ready?" Naruto asked his student. This was the moment Gaara was waiting for, the moment he never thought would come. "Hi," he answered. "Then close your eyes." The blonde continued. "I'll see you in your mindscape." Those were the last words Gaara heard before he was standing in his mindscape, the mighty Bijou before him silent for once, just waiting. Gaara's mindscape was much like Naruto's, not that he knew it in that it was filled up to the knee in water. The seal, however, was very different. Instead of a mighty, unbreakable cage, Shikaku was chained to non-existent walls, a collar-like chain wrapped around his neck. Drip. With a sudden distortion of air, two more figures appeared in the mindscape. Meeting the Bijou's gaze, Naruto smiled. "Hello, Shikaku." He greeted the Ichibi, a small smile on his face. The Bijou noticed Sasuke at his side. The giant Tanuki narrowed his eyes. "Under those bandages," he spoke, before Sasuke smirked. Shikaku growled deeply at the Uchiha, at the boy who possessed those eyes. "Sasuke is my student, Shikaku." Naruto started, his voice that of absolute power. "You have nothing to fear." A lie and the truth all at the same time. "I'm not afraid of him." Shikaku lied. "He just annoys me." He growled again. Those flames fucking hurt. He wasn't going to mention how dark the boy's chakra had felt that day. That chakra had been darker, more malevolent than a pist of Kurama. It was true darkness. Naruto, however, could read a Bijou just as easily as he could read a human. "I'd like to take these chains off of you, Shikaku." Naruto began. "You have been chained like a mindless animal for too long, and I'd like to free you." Shikaku was only slightly surprised. He knew how his and Kurama's relationship was, but he had never thought he would be offered the same. "What's the catch?" Shikaku asked. He had been imprisoned much longer than his siblings, he lost any kind of trust in humanity hundreds of years ago. Naruto sighed. "No catch." He started. "All I ask is for you to work alongside Gaara." At these words, the Tanuki began to laugh hysterically. "Me, working with a mortal?" He looked at Naruto like he grew a second head. "I'd rather stay chained." "I told you." Gaara stated in his deep, growl-like voice. Shikaku dash. "Do not speak my name like you are worthy, Gaki." The giant Bijou yelled. With another distortion of air, the Kyuubi, in all its glory, stared at his youngest brother with a glare that silenced the Bijou in seconds. "Keep your voice down, Tanuki." Kurama spoke. "You'll annoy me." Naruto smiled. His partner did not enter Gaara's mindscape because he was annoyed, but because he thought Naruto was the one who had been yelled at. No matter how powerful the human was, Kurama was his partner, they faced everything together. After an irritated silence, Shikaku roared. "Shut up, Fox." He tried to move, but the chain stopped him. "That superior attitude of yours is what's annoying." Kurama merely chuckled. "The truth is annoying?" he asked innocently. "I am superior to you, Tanuki." The Kyuubi waved its massive tails for all to see. "Acceptance is the first step." Shikaku growled once more, before Naruto stepped in. "Enough of this," he said with finality. With the wave of his hand, Son Goku and Isabu, the Yonbi and Sanbai, appeared next to Kurama. I am the child of prophecy, Shikaku. At this, the raccoon-like chakra construct looked to his right, as if he already knew this. Gaara is my student, my ultimate defense. He smirked. Sasuke is my eyes, and Gaara is my shield. He locked eyes with the sand bijou. The bijou are being hunted, and without my help, they will be captured. Naruto knew the organization Itachi was spying on was terrifyingly powerful. Join us, and help me save your brothers and sisters. Shikaku was silent for a moment before he began. Why would I want to help any of them? He asked. They treat me like I'm nothing because I only have a single tail. I'm looked down on by those very brothers and sisters, mocked for just being. He ranted. Why would I want to help siblings like that? Naruto held the bijou's gaze. You cannot lie to me, Shikaku. He spoke in a confident tone. I know you do not truly despise your siblings. The Tanuki scowled. In my eyes, the one who protects even those who belittle them is the strongest. He would know, he had personal experience with it. That's why you should help me, help Gaara protect them. He raised both of his arms. We are creating something huge here, Shikaku, something the world has never seen. And I would like your help in achieving that. There is a storm on the horizon. War cometh, and it will be like nothing anyone's ever seen before. Join us, brother. Isabu said. We need you, bro. Son seconded, grinning like the monkey he was. We've had a strained relationship, haven't we? Gaara suddenly asked. His voice was low, his expression one of cold acceptance. When you fall asleep, I will possess your body and soul. And murder all of you humans. The words Shikaku spoke to him when he was a child were still fresh in his mind. Be careful not to sleep too deeply. Gaara continued. You plagued my nightmares, forcing me into sleep deprivation. He looked at his reflection in the water. You made me into a bloodthirsty beast. You're all worse than us beasts. Again, Shikaku's words flooding his brain. But you and I are more the same than either of us would like to admit. Shikaku huffed. We are nothing alike. Gaara didn't show his irritation at being interrupted. No, he raised a single finger. We were both called demons, a second finger. We were both forced into this relationship, a third finger. We have both been forsaken by family. With those words, Shikaku remembered the words of the last man he respected, his likeliness to the Rikudo Sennin earning him the trust of the most untrusting being in creation. There will definitely be someone that will save and guide you too. Once you've accepted that person's hidden heart, you will also understand the meaning of the words. My master carved into my hands. Kokoro. Yukuru. People who share similar pain. They are the ones who can truly understand each other. Naruto somewhat disagreed with Gaara, but he stayed his tongue. Knowing that the red-haired shinobi had broken through. Silence flooded the mindscape, the tailed beast of the desert just staring at his container. And then, he spoke. My motto is absolute defense, Gaki, he shouted. Don't forget it. It's my pride as Shikaku. It was the only way he knew how to accept their offer. He would join them and defend everyone with all his might. The resulting smile on everyone's face would have scared Kami herself. One by one, Naruto, Sasuke, Gaara, Shikaku, Isabu, Son Goku, and Kurama flared their chakra, the mindscape shaking. Suddenly, the chains around the Ichibi shattered, unable to withstand the pressure of such powerful energy. Shikaku was finally free after 400 years of subjugation. And he was going to rip the world a new one. Oh. You are already at it, I see. Jiraiya suddenly spoke, entering a small stand. Sitting at the stand was Tsunade and Shizune, the former drinking sake. The Slugheim looked to the tall man through the corner of her eye, Shizune turning her entire head to greet the legendary man. Why are you here? Tsunade slightly sneered. Jiraiya merely smirked. You're cold. Don't say that. He replied. Shizune gave the Sennin a pleading look. Jiraiya-sama. Jiraiya looked at the younger woman. Shizune, could you leave us? He asked. He closed his eyes. It's been a while. I want to drink with her again. Nodding, Shizune stood, letting Jiraiya take her seat. As she walked away, she could hear him ordering sake and radish. Walking a short distance, she turned around and bowed. I'm counting on you, Jiraiya-sama, she whispered. After thanking the cook for the radish and sake, he looked at Tsunade, a smirk on his face. Is he on your mind? He asked. She turned to her old teammate. Who? Jiraiya's smile only widened. Naruto. He replied. Tsunade turned, she had a stubborn look on her face. Not particularly. She lied. Still. It was foolish, taking him on as an opponent. He began in a serious voice. You could have seriously died if you pushed him too far. Tsunade just clicked her tongue, disregarding his words. What's wrong with you? Tsunade was acting like someone he didn't know. He barely recognized her. None of your business. She snapped at him, causing him to stay silent for a moment. Have you made up your mind yet? He asked. Tsunade stayed silent. Don't rush to a decision. He continued when she stayed quiet. And? Let me just tell you one thing. Jiraiya was speaking in a voice that he used when he wanted people to listen, and listen Tsunade did. The successive line of Hokage has protected Konoha and those living in it. They brought troubled times under control and helped the village prosper. His voice became slightly more aggressive. They risked their lives for this dream, for this ideal. His voice softened. You're not someone who can't understand the feelings of the previous Hokage. His voice then darkened. Just try doing something to betray Konoha. Tsunade looked at him with a scowl. If that happens, I'll kill you. He spoke with total conviction. It has nothing to do with me now. Tsunade shouted, annoyed that Jiraiya spoke to her like he could actually kill her. And the fact that, in sage mode, he probably could only made her more annoyed. A person who has experienced the death of people close to them and doesn't feel anything is just a butcher. There was a small pause. You're different, aren't you? No one cared for the welfare of the villagers more than you. He then smiled. Until Naruto was born. This got her attention. The entire village hated him, despised him for being the Jinchuriki. Tsunade scowled. But he served Konoha in a way no one before has. He smirked. I personally seen the kid take on entire armies. Just the other day. He summoned the Shinigami and beat him back in a battle of will. Tsunade looked at Jiraiya as if he was crazy. He's a monster, Tsunade, a true monster who would rip his own throat out if the Hokage asked him to do so. Enough of the lecture, Jiraiya. The last Senju finally spoke. What's the point in telling me all of this? The point, he explained, is that, if you choose Orochimaru, if you choose the Akatsuki, he looked her in the eye, a sad look in his dark orbs. He's going to be the one you will have to face. He sighed, shaking his head. And trust me when I say this, Suna-chan, why didn't she get upset when he used her nickname? You won't survive that fight. He warned. Tsunade was silent for a long moment before she finally asked, her curiosity getting to her. Just how powerful is the Yandame's child? Jiraiya didn't even look at her, instead he closed his eyes, focusing on the question. To be honest with you, he began in a voice that she had never heard come from his mouth, I have no idea. He finally looked at her. And it scares the hell out of me. Naruto breathed in and out in a peaceful rhythm, his mind totally void of thought. Staying still was extremely difficult for humans to accomplish, and it proved to be incredibly hard for Sasuke and Gaara. The Kage Bunshin method was useless. Neither of them had the kind of experience in the technique to accelerate training, so they had to find another way. And that other way was unity. Through the combined empathy, Naruto could actually show his students how to properly meditate, how to breathe, how to absorb the energy that floods the world. He took in a deep breath, his body still, his mind clear. Sasuke and Gaara followed, mirroring their sensei. Naruto stirred his chakra, his students copying him in the exact manner. He then stopped the flow of his chakra, letting it build, condense. When Gaara and Sasuke did the same, the three of them smirked. It was only a matter of time now. Suddenly, 6 kunai raced at Naruto from his back, so silent, so fast that ordinary shinobi would have been dead before they knew anything was wrong. But the 3 meditating shinobi were not ordinary. With incredibly impressive speed, a thick blanket of sand rose from behind the blonde, the kunai sticking into it harmlessly. A 7th kunai suddenly rushed the Kamikaze's face, it too faster than average men could perceive. That's when the blade was caught in the hands of Uchiha Sasuke, stopping it mere inches from Naruto's face. It was instant reaction, the likes of which would not be possible without the increased threat perception granted by Unity. Impressive, a very familiar voice spoke. You have been busy, haven't you? Senpai? Naruto smiled. Ah, he chuckled, finally opening his eyes. Itachi. This was all for now. Thank you for watching, I hope you liked it and that you will be back for more. Please like, share and subscribe. See ya.